So welcome everybody. We usually don't have a big audience like this, so that's great. We have I want to tell you that we're having two meetings tonight so that you understand that there's two different parts. The first one is public comments on the coordinating committee concerning the Cheetah County Joint Growth Plan for the town of Kingston Springs. So that's what we're going to do right now. And then after that, we will have the normal planning commission meeting, and there will be a community input on that. So I just wanted to tell you, we're not there yet. We're on the first part, which is public comments on consideration and recommendations of the coordinating committee concerning the updates to the Cheetah County Joint Growth Plan in the town of Kingston Springs. Growth planning in Tennessee is legislated in public, Chapter 1101, Tennessee Code annotated 658-101 through 180. So, could I, by a show of hands, ask who would be here to comment on the joint growth plan of Kingston Springs? Anybody here wants to provide input on that? Okay. Anybody up here want to provide input on that?
A very quick statement, Mr. Chairman. Behind you on the wall is a map. The yellow area represents the area that the committee is recommending that we remove from our growth boundary. So that will come up again on your agenda. I just wanted you to be aware that the yellow area is the section that's being discussed on the agenda.
Okay. Now that you've all just heard that, does anybody want to comment on that? Okay, so I don't see anybody wanting to comment or provide input on the growth planning coordinating committee. So, John, are we okay to adjourn this?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, we have adjourned the public hearing. And now we'll move to the regular planning commission meeting for August 12th. And I will call that meeting to order. I'll start with a roll call of voting members. Keith Alden.
Present.
Tony Campbell.
Here.
Tom Cullen.
Here.
Josh Everly.
Here.
Tony Gross.
Here.
Brian McCain.
Here.
Michael Patno, that's me, here. Chuck Slater. Chuck Slater's absent, and Bob Stoll.
Here.
All right, non-voting staff. Sharon Armstrong. Here. John Lawless.
Here.
Martha Brooke Perry.
Here.
Brittany Singh.
Here.
Okay. Good said. So we have a quorum. And the commission, you have the June 10th meeting minutes before you. I'll point out that in paragraph 9, it refers to the training date. It should be June 17th. So that would need to be amended in that. Does anybody else have anything on the June 10th Planning Commission minutes, or do we have a motion to approve? Sharon, do you have something?
Yes, on the minutes under item A, new business, next to the last sentence, that needs to be corrected to read grading plan with a Cheetah permit rather than certificate, and split to stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Anyway.
Split. Let's get the key. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve as amended. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. So now you have the August 12th Planning Commission agenda before you with all 39 items on the agenda. Just do we have a motion to approve today's meeting agenda?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, so it's approved. Now we get to the community input section, and I would like to ask for a show of hands so I kind of have an idea of how many people actually want to come up and provide input. Can I see a show of hands of anybody who wants to provide input? One. Okay, I just see one person. Two. Okay, three. All right. Anybody else? So I just want to let you know that all happens during this community input portion And then when we go through the rest of the meeting, there are not opportunities for input during the rest of the meeting, unless you are one of the items on the agenda. Okay? So we have 3 people. So if you could come up and tell us your name and your address, and then go ahead and provide your input.
Citizens Local Page. I'm a resident of Sims Heights Road, and I'm here to learn more about the landing issue.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Rolls, 1072 Sims Heights. I'd like to hear more about this also.
Okay, thank you.
Marcy, and I'm here also about the Sims Heights landing that's coming up.
Okay, did you want to provide any input?
Yeah, I'm just curious about it.
Okay.
Why do they want to glamp if they're on Sims Heights?
Okay.
When they have a farm, that already glamps.
Okay. All right, thank you. Was there somebody else?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Clark. I live on Twin Oaks Court in Kingston Springs. And it's hard to kind of get input prior to hearing the information that I'm hoping to get. But overall, I'm here for the point E. I don't know a lot about it. I'm not quite sure where that's going to be, but I'm wanting to learn more about the apartment complex. Would that be just south of Sonic?
Would that be just what? I'm sorry.
Is that located south of Sonic? I don't quite know where.
Oh, we'll
We'll talk about
when we
that
get to
more.
that,
Okay.
we'll show where
All right.
it is. Okay.
So I'm interested in learning more about that, but overall, I just have a concern in just what the vision is for like Kingston Springs in general. How big do we want to be? I'm more interested in community spaces as opposed to profitable, businesses and apartments. I'm more interested in places for children and people, art, music, whatever it may be. But that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. So just a comment, if anybody wants to know about Kingston Springs, I would suggest that you start by contacting City Hall, because there's a lot of stuff that already exists, and they can inform you on a lot of things. So I just want to make that point, because there is a lot of information out there. Wow, John.
A little feedback.
Get a little feedback. Okay, got it. So, thank you all. Now we will close the community input. There is no old business. So new business. The first item is consideration of recommendation to the Kingston Springs Board of Commissioners, Ordinance 21007, concerning amending the Town of Kingston Springs zoning ordinance, notice requirements to PC and BZA. Sharon, would that be something we present or Martha Brooke? Okay.
So if you all remember, we touched on this briefly. Commissioner Clark had asked that you all as the board that first get to look at changes to the zoning ordinance, look at it first, and then the Board of Commissioners look at requiring more enhanced notice to persons, like that, for example, zoning changes, Board of Zoning appeals requests, and hearings and things like that. And so taking her requests and suggestions and looking at the counties and what they require and some of the adjacent cities, I have formulated this ordinance for your consideration, amending certain parts of the zoning ordinance with respect to requirements for posting of notice when there's a zone change, for example, and number of days after on paper, sending letters to adjacent property owners, etc. So that's basically what this ordinance before you does. It just has more enhanced notice requirements, and it fairly well matches what is required in the county.
Okay. So, is there any action that you're asking for?
So if the board is inclined to ask for this change, or is inclined to this change, then you would make a motion to approve this and recommend it for passage to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. So, to the commission, do you have any questions right now on this topic?
I just have a problem with the published in the newspaper, bill distribution, was journal circulation. We don't have, some of us get access to the exchange, and I see it all in there, but I bet there's not one in 15 people see the exchange.
If I could address that, the definition under state law of what a newspaper of general circulation is, the exchange actually fits that.
And my problem is that this is not a general circulation.
Not many people get it. I hear you on that, but it does meet the definition.
Well, is there any way that these notices could be part of the input to the city commission or to the town of Kingston Springs as far as the website or something like that is concerned? I don't know, certain people seem to be a lot more attuned to what appears on their general computer screens as far as local events and anything else. Just make a comment.
So, are you suggesting proposing any kind of change, Tom?
I'm not suggesting it. I say that it needs to be considered how this information could be put into more effective general circulation than a quote newspaper unquote.
Could you just add the language that says newspaper and town media?
Electronic.
Yeah.
Instead of changing it,
Yeah,
just
the
add
town media, or.
That way it encompasses all town media.
Absolutely. Because by statute, you have to publish it in a
Correct.
newspaper of circulation. So we're hitting that mark, but yes, if you wanted to add to it, put in addition to any, I guess right now for the foreseeable future, website would be probably the preferred, but any electronic communication platform that the town uses. You may want to be a little careful on how you word it, because if you just put electronic platform, that could also, means you have to put it on the Twitter account, Instagram, and all of that. So if you just wanted to put the town website, do that, and we get 20 years down the road and we're all using something other than websites, I don't know, we can change it that point now.
Okay, so,
Which one of those platforms is viewed more often, and which one of those platforms is updated more often?
We have, for social media, we use Facebook and Instagram, and those are connected through a business suite. So when we post something on Facebook, it automatically posts to Instagram. There are a lot more followers of the town's Facebook page than there are of their Instagram.
And then also is the exchange on the internet?
They are.
Website? Yeah. So it's all within that
But I
website?
don't think they put public notices up. They have a website, and the public notices may be on the website, but I do not believe the public notices ever get put on their social media, so I'm not wrong.
And to Keith's point, if we just put it on our website, there's probably more people that get the exchange than you're on our website.
If I were in a position, I would manage it on the website, because that is your official production of documents. And then, request that if there are additional platforms that are used with frequency, that it also be published on that, if you don't want those lines. I think your website is your more formal face and page for information for the town, because it's accessible to everyone.
And we can always link anything back to it.
Exactly. And that way, if you don't use Facebook in a few years, you don't have that specifically referenced in your ordinance.
Which, so just basically treat them similar to how we treat our media. Just the city commission, planning commission get placed on Facebook and stuff like that. It's not, we don't have
It's
that
not
written
an
anywhere that we
ordinance.
have to do that, we just do it, so.
Right. So if you wanted to go that route, you could say, shall be advertised in the newspaper of general circulation and in whatever electronic format that the Board of Commissioners, public hearings are advertised in.
Okay.
Will that work?
Yeah.
Great.
got that, good, John?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion to recommend this as amended?
Second.
All right, is there any other comment or question on this? All right, so all in favor for the ordinance as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So item A is complete. So item B, consideration consideration and recommendation to the Kingston Springs City Commission for the update to the joint county growth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned earlier, the coordinating committee for the city has recommended the removal of the yellow section of the map. As we've discussed in several meetings over the last few months, the place is going to be a burden on the property owner. They come to us for a recommendation for rezoning. They pay a fee. Then they go to the county and they pay another fee. Then they come back to us if they want to subdivide, and our subdivision regulations and the county zoning regulations are not concurrent. So it creates a 3-month, 4-month process for an applicant for something that really should be handled in the county. The second issue that came up as a result of this was the level of input that we would have over that developed area. Nothing can develop in the vacant tracts unless it's included in the county's urban road boundaries. The very first question they ask for every planning session. So having said that, it's my recommendation that we adopt the new growth boundary, which is in blue, and remove that area, which is in yellow, which creates a hardship for the applicants.
Okay. Any questions for Sharon? All right, so this would be a recommendation to the Kingston Springs City Commission for this update to the county growth plan. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Recommendation to the City Commission. Item C, rezone change of use request, 172 Library Mills Road. Request to amend the C2 Highway Commercial District to allow residential occupation of commercial buildings. Is there somebody here who wants to speak to that?
Visual aids, if it's all right. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman, and committee. My name is Tim Royer. My wife Erin is a building man. We're the proud owners of 172 Woodland Hills Road as of Tuesday morning. And we go to County Road as part of this community. What we'd like to do with that small commercial property is put in an engineering office. We're a small engineering company called Timber Tech Engineering. We're structural designers of wood frame buildings, do a lot of rural, suburban type engineering, not only structural but also code review, code approvals, that type of thing. And we see the need here, and so we're excited about it. In addition to occupying as an office, we were hoping to put a small suite in the back of this building. That would be an owner suite. We're in town, we live in Pennsylvania, that we could put basically a hotel suite room. I like the one we're staying in now. And it's not, as I said in the letter to the committee, intended to be a permanent residence. We'd like to maybe be here once a month for a week at a time. I will have one, maybe two full-time employees working out of the building, and then I will come down at some routine, maybe once a month. So that's the purpose of this residential. So I thought I'd just show you real quick. The plan is up there. What we'd like to do is give it a little bit of timber look on the outside. Timber Tech Engineering is the name. And the plan is up there. You can see on the right-hand side is what's existing. The main entrance is this door that's here, and around that side is the other entrance in the upper right-hand corner. Those two rooms on the right hand and the next two rooms are existing. It was a chiropractor's office before we owned it. We would not change those other than paint and new flooring. The back half of the building is what we're asking for your permission to put this owner suite. We basically renovated it into a small hotel room type suite. That particular layout. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sharon, do you have a comment on this?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Roy. As you can see from the plans, we proposed suite contain a full kitchen, a bedroom, a bathroom, with the rear area of the building, and an additional bathroom for the building. There's one already in the building as it exists today for office space. Operationally, I think we have a couple of problems that we need to discuss. One, if you approve this use, that would require an amendment to the zoning ordinance for C2, which is commercial highway district. If that amendment was done, it would apply to every single lot in that district. The highway service commercial district primarily contains hotels and convenience stores, and truck stops, and businesses of that type. There's a veterinarian office, there's a few restaurants, a couple of other things there. So from my perspective, amending the C2 zoning ordinance to allow residential use is going to present a suite of problems for the city. There simply isn't enough sewer to meet demand for each one of those lots. And in many cases, living quarters behind or attached to those structures will not be appropriate because of their commercial nature. The other alternative that I can see, as much as we did for the downtown district, where there's an overlay, where you consider this as a special exception on a case-by-case basis, rather than applying it to the whole district wholesale. Because as I've said, we have traffic issues on that road. Adding residential occupation to every single lot on that road is going to add to that traffic issue substantially. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions if anybody has any. Yes, sir.
Is that not considered spot zoning?
It is considered spot zoning unless it's written into the zone as a special exception, as we did in the downtown area. My umbrage with it, Commissioner Campbell, is the same as yours. It's not a suitable use within that zone for the most part, because it allows a use that contributes to traffic and is incongruent with your economic development goals and also the commercial use that's within the zone. So, again, if you're going to consider this, my advice to you would be to do so as a special exception with an overlay that comes to the planning commission for review on a site plan on a case-by-case basis where it's appropriate. Then you also have to consider that the building life survives the term of the person occupying. So if Mr. Reuter is no longer the owner, that then becomes a rentable residential occupation within a commercial zone. So those are the things that you will consider as you consider this application.
So what you're recommending or saying you do is basically the same overlay like we did in the downtown area.
That's correct.
And in that situation, what we'd be looking at with the planning commission would vote to place that overlay on the C2 zone, and then anybody that wanted to pursue that would just have to come forward, come to the board, submit.
They would with the site plan.
With the site plan, and then it would be approved by the planning commission on a case-by-case basis. Now, when you were talking about change of ownership, is there any way to prevent that? There is no, at that point, there is no way to prevent that. So once it exists, it exists forever.
It exists in perpetuity. It's there. It doesn't expire with ownership. It travels with the zoning designation.
Other questions for Sharon?
So what all would it entail if this was a dual purpose building? If you said within the C2 there are already hotels. What if this were a rentable space as a room and then his company in the other? What is the difference there?
What's entailed in that, Mr. Aldridge, one is traffic consideration. In this particular case, it's a relatively small footprint apartment inside a commercial structure that's being proposed. Site plan would have to be presented, construction plans, entrance, exits. There's a proposed element of the building to build a deck into the setback, which we don't allow, you can't approach. On the setback, we have sewer and public utility easements on that property that can't be disturbed. So what's involved in it is simply seeing if it makes sense, if it fits, if we can absorb the traffic at that location, if it presents any other challenges to the adjacent property owners, if it crosses any easement lines. So those are all considerations, sewer usage. I believe less than 2 weeks ago, this property was connected to the city sewer.
If I could jump in there too, because you're asking, we have hotels within the area and all. You gotta remember, we have a definition for what that is, and we charge a hotel motel tax too. So I don't believe that's what his intent is here. I think it is a residential intent, not running a one-room hotel.
So again, while I understand Mr. Warrior's comment, it was much like a hotel suite, this is not a hotel building. And it brings tax ramifications that I don't know he's prepared to incur.
I think we have real problems in zoning. Need poor planning, poor business and part of this planning. Spot zone, start that, you're going to be going all over town, changing zone for Joe Blow, Avenue, Studio, this kind of thing. I'm having real problems.
I agree with you, Commissioner Campbell. The corridor, as the Planning Commission is aware, is the subject of a TPR. It's being wrapped up by TDOT for transportation and traffic. And we have numerous traffic issues associated with both Logan Hills and with East Kingston Springs Road. There are a couple of other projects that are being considered that lie adjacent to that general area off of Tennessee is one. We had another application this week on an adjacent parcel, slightly past the Petro and on the right, that property's been cleared. And until there's a traffic solution that addresses safety issues, it's not the time that you sit at the red light, although it may be annoying. It's can we navigate this area of emergency vehicles if the situation arises. Given the number of accidents on I-40, given the amount of traffic that comes through from Highway 70, those are issues that we're working on. One apartment with one bedroom probably will contribute greatly to that traffic, but it sets a precedent in the area that is C2 commercial.
The proposed, even if it was an overlay, the new rezone, does it have definition of, I don't think it does, the number of rooms? I mean, once you open it, there's no definition of it, just a one room, right? It could essentially, if it's on sewer, it can, once you pass that, it could have 5 rooms. Maybe not this property, but I'm talking about other properties. You can't, we're not passing something that says everybody can have one room. You can do.
Once you open that to residential, you open it to residential, then it can become an application to go to R2, R3, R4, condos, new developments. So once you open that zoning to allow that residential use, you've opened it pretty wide door.
I have real problems. I just don't think it's a smart move in the Department of City. Spot zone. That's exactly what it is. I know I'm one of the older people here, but I was taught in every spot zone, so.
In its current format, if someone were to approve it under the C2 zone without it being amended, it would be a spot zone, which is the violation of the zoning district and ordinance. There are 2 paths potentially for these types of projects. One is to amend the zoning to allow it outright, which we all have acknowledged and stated would create issues on every other lot in pursuit. And the second is to do an overlay. But do you do an overlay for one parcel? And then where does it go from there? So it's a pretty wide door issue, sir.
Any more questions? Do we have a motion?
So the question on the table.
I mean, the motion, what is the motion?
The motion will be one of two forms, either the motion to amend the zoning ordinance to allow residential use in the C2 district, or a motion to allow an overlay to be created for the C2 district that will allow a special exception for residential use within that zone,
Or a motion to deny either.
or a motion to deny. So those are your three options there.
I'll make a motion to deny.
And Mr. Campbell, could you also state your reasoning? I know you stated it before the record with your motion to deny. Could you set forth your reasoning why?
A lot of reasons, primarily it's spot zone. And I don't think that we ought to be going around just changing zoning at anybody's whim. It's planned that way, we need to keep it.
Second.
Okay. Do we have,
And Mayor, could you also state your reasoning? It includes any of the traffic issues or anything along those lines of the opening and broadening of
That's mainly about opening and broadening the definition of the zoning in that area. I think that it's just not appropriate for the district and same issues that zoning has with it.
so,
Is everything along Lavendale Road C2 there?
It is through that corridor, Mr. Cullen, all the way on the left side, past the Petro, I believe this is the C2 zone, stops all the way up to Kingston Springs Road. And on the right-hand side, the lot that was recently cleaned adjacent to the manufacturing plant, that is actually zoned residential.
Is that the ornamental iron place was going to go?
Yes, the ornamental iron placement one in the C2 zone.
But that's not what
Pardon?
he's talking about the law that is clear. He's talking about the law that is clear.
The lot that was cleared right now is a residential zone. It's a residential zone that butts the C2 zone, but there's a road that divides the two.
The ornamental iron, I thought was right there at the curve. Is that,
It had to get rezoned,
Yes.
never located.
so it's next to the box factory?
It's
No,
C2.
he's talking about there.
It's C2, right?
That's not what that one.
What about that lot? There was a house there in the curve that was also demolished in the last month. Is that residential there?
Top of the curve?
No, in the middle of it. Going, after the first curve, along the line, there was a big old house.
Yeah, that's residential.
Residential. It was residential.
Still is currently. R2. Right. Are there any other special exceptions within that corridor?
There are special exceptions in that corridor, but they're all commercial in nature.
They're all commercial.
There are no residential dwelling occupations other than hotel rooms that are commercial in nature.
Right.
So,
And if this was addressed as a dual purpose business, hotel, there would be different hotel taxes and things of that nature, and things to consider differently than residential. But it could be done as a dual purpose, correct?
Not as an apartment, not within that zone. It is
Just-
not a hotel room, so it is an apartment.
Okay.
It's presented as an apartment, it's not rented to the general public, we're talking about owner
Right.
occupied, so it's not.
so we have a motion. Are there any other questions from the commission? I don't hear any other questions. So, the motion was to deny the request to amend the C2 commercial district to allow residential occupation. All in favor of denying that request? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, roll call on the vote.
I apologize, but it's a zoning question.
All right, Ms. Smith. All right, so the roll call on the vote. Please give me your vote when I call your name. Keith Allgood?
Aye.
Tony Campbell?
Aye.
Tom Cullen,
Aye.
Josh Everly,
Aye.
Tony Gross,
Aye.
Brian McCain,
Aye.
Mike Padilla, that's me, aye. Chuck Slater is absent, Bob Solik.
Aye.
Okay. So the motion passes to deny your request.
Thank you for your consideration. I do appreciate the conversation.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, the next item is preliminary plat for 601 Mount Pleasant Road, re-subdivision of an existing parcel into 3 lots. Map 96 of Route A, parcel 14. The property lies in an R1A low-density residential agricultural zoning district. Is anybody here to present that?
I guess that would be me. Got an existing lot, 4.6 acres, where it was in Mary Larkin in phase 2 originally. The owner would like to split this tract into 3 separate parcels. 5A, 5C, both accessing Mount Pleasant Road, which has a 50-foot right-of-way, and then 5B accessing Blackburn Drive, which has a 50-foot right-of-way. There are steep slopes on 5A and 5B with the notation there of a critical lot, so those will have to come back, or at least 5B would for any new structures. But that's pretty much it.
Is that what the ostrich farm was?
That's the ostrich farm, right? The old ostrich farm? It's on the corner of Blackburn and Mount Pleasant.
Yes.
One time, that one was like an ostrich farm.
That's how we define stuff around here.
It's right next to the cemetery.
That's where the big farms are. Okay. So, Sharon, do you have comments on this? Thank you, Brian.
The preliminary plat shows 3 lots, as you can see on the board behind you. Given the slope for the, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. My primary concern with this division of property, obviously, is this lot and its ability to curb. There's no public sewer there, so there would have to be septic tanks. The secondary issue that I see with the division of this, and that's to be done in an ownership agreement, is this access point for this lot appears to be this driveway, then there's another one here, so it's what's known as an in and out, and it's really close to the lot line. So I guess the applicant, Mr. McCain, do you know the applicant intended to maintain this in and out for driveway access from 2 lots?
No.
No, it was going to construct a separate access for each of these lots.
Right.
And in this lot, we access from Blackburn.
That's correct.
How close is that? Does this navigate through the cemetery or adjacent to the cemetery back here? But my primary concern, one is the slope that's unbuildable, but here the slope is very, very small. And permeability will likely be an issue on this lot as it is in this general area.
Yeah, with anything else, with all the requests that the surveyors are going to now is getting everything, something perfect. We don't have, the division around groundwater protection doesn't have an office anymore, first out. They're all teleworking indefinitely. So, getting someone to get out there and bring them, to get some signatures and reviews and things like that has become troublesome. That's why this is, coming here doing a plat instead of a final plat. Plus he wanted to make sure that, get all their input.
To address what Mr. McCain is saying, Mr. Chairman, and the Planning Commission, the state has changed the way they do business for this. There is a backlog, which is development's pretty steep in the county right now. The average wait time for a perk test is about 2 months, or permits up 3 months. It happens to everybody at the same pace. My concern with this property are whether or not it's a perk. It's a very small buildable area on that very lot. Perk is going to be an issue. So the Planning Commission if you're inclined to approve the preliminary on this plat, I would ask, which we usually don't do, that you do so with stipulation that it hurts on all 3 lots, otherwise you wouldn't have an issue when it comes back as final.
That's going to be a situation for another agency to approve, but when we get the soils done and we see what is usable, that lot line between 5C and 5B may change slightly.
In the 5A.
Right. We can push that line up, the top line down the hill and then on up to make it a better, this, like I said, this is prelim, this is, what his ideas are right now, but what's going to drive it is going to be where is the soils at, and what's usable.
What's the negative to the city if it's approved?
Right, there's not really a negative impact, I simply want to make them aware.
Correct.
That it could be an issue, and then there's a requirement with the subdivision regulations, which I've never quite really understood, that requires that the preliminary plat be in substantial compliance with the final. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room to change that. However, it's entirely under the planning commission's consideration. If it does not hurt, can't have 3 lots anyway.
Right. So when we're referencing PERT, are we referencing the PERT to a certain size? What size is that? It's to 1 bedroom?
There has to be a primary duplicate soil field waste down for each lot.
But I'm just saying, are we requiring minimal of PERTing in this motion, or are you just saying just a 1 bedroom house?
Right, this is a preliminary approval, it's not, that's
We
not
can't
final.
say what kind of better food. Like I said, the soils will work is what's going to dictate where that property line goes. Of course, you still got to meet the requirements of size, frontage, and the whole nine, but once we get to that point, we'll see what it is. And if he wants a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom,
Right, but we're not, like I said, we're not saying it has to meet a minimum. I understand the whole PERT process, but just make sure that if we're making a motion, we're not making a motion that it says to PERT, as opposed to we need to say PERT to a certain size.
So it sounds like your only concern on this division from a planning subdivision standpoint is whether or not the property covers.
That is correct. That's correct. As long as each lot has access to meets the requirements and subdivision regulations that are fully visible. The only concern that I have is the soil and the civic waste system.
So if we wanted to, what do we provide? Preliminary approval, is that what it's called?
just so we're clear, the Division of Groundwater Protection has to sign off on this plat.
Right,
Every plat.
right.
They won't take anything else but the plat. Even in a remapping situation, they have to sign it, or it will not be recorded. We can approve anything we want, but as like I said, it's a different agency, that actually requires different things.
But we also want to recognize what our concern is.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that would be a consideration of everything that comes through.
yeah. So, what would the motion sound like if we wanted to approve this subject to,
The motion would be, Chairman, that the commission votes to approve the preliminary plat contingent on PERT and sign off by the Cheetah.
okay,
So
all right. Does anybody want to? Okay, we got a second? Okay, we have a second. Second, Scott Collins. And Brian, you'll be recused from this vote.
Yeah, as soon as I
Just so everybody knows, he's not voting on this one? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we don't need a roll call. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and Brian abstained. All right. Okay, so item E, the final plat, McPherson combining 3 parcels for the purpose of development approved, preliminary master plan multifamily apartment complex containing 40 units. 115 East Kingston Springs Road, and that is next to the storage place. As you go towards the high school on the left, that's the storage place. That's the lot we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This item was deferred from the June meeting plat did not contain all the signatures that were required. Those have since been obtained. As you know, this is the second round for this particular development scenario. It has now been reduced to 40 apartments. We started out at 46, then went down to 43, and now we're at 40. The original easement agreement between East Downs and Mr. McPherson that was approved by this planning commission has been reported. It is the exact same easement that allows access to the property. This is not approval of the master plan where the apartment building is simply combining the 3 lots into one. No work can occur, no additional approvals can be granted until the 3 lots are combined into one. This is the final plat. And the Mylars are in place at the Superintendent's office.
So we would be recommending approval of combining the 3 parcels for the purpose of developing.
That is correct.
But not approving the plan. Okay, do we have any questions on this? So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Excuse me, I want to ask you something about I'm still trying to get something settled on my easement on this, and I missed the last meeting. So,
Yes, ma'am.
Have y'all made a final decision on this easement along with this property myself, or is that on another meeting?
I would say meet with John in the city office on the status of that easement.
This is our last meeting, I was at, he received a development, permit, or not a building permit or something, to develop the easement or something, and then just want to talk about that.
What's that?
Something like that.
The easement agreement was signed by Ms. Downs and Mr. McPherson and reported with the county registrar's office.
Okay.
So that agreement came to this planning commission. That is the easement that's reflected on this plat.
Okay, did you hear that just now?
Yes, I understand it was signed and agreed upon, but I'm wondering, what's going to start first, his development or my property? Because I really need my easement finished in there, and I don't know if I need to talk to the state or the city or the county or who it is. That's the problem.
Can you answer where that would fit into the
I
process?
can answer that question. Until the master development plan is approved, which is the next step, the grading plan, which contains the improvements to the driveway for both the apartment complex and for Ms. Downs access, I anticipate those will come to you next month because they were submitted yesterday. I haven't had time to review them all, but it will contain her access as well. The grading plan comes first.
Okay, so that's where we would have the discussion on the grading plan?
That's correct. At the time that he does his initial grading, that road and access for the Downs has to be blocked.
Okay. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Did we finish item E? Did we take a vote on that?
We did.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. So now we're going into item F. Concept review, consideration of proposed glamping campsite located at 1071 Sims Heights Road, 23.99 acre site, located in the R1A zoning district, adjacent to the Washington Heights subdivision on Sims Heights Road. Is there somebody here presenting that proposed concept review? John is...
I'm not heard.
Okay. So...
There's no concept to review.
So is there anything else to do on this item?
No, sir, unless the sheriff have the words, there's nothing else to report.
What is glamping?
Packet contains the information that the applicant supplied of the initial development of 5 units for tenants in trees, the composting toilets, no electricity, no water, no sewer. behind you that you see the drawing. This is being presented to you as a concept. It lies entirely within a commercial district or a residential district. This is commercial activity. When you look at it, it will be rented. So it's my recommendation that because it would disrupt the primary use of the residential district, an old logging road is proposed for access. There's no plan for sanitation that was proposed. Would be that this is not something without a great deal of information that I would recommend that you consider.
So there's no action to be taken at this point?
No, they're simply being informed as to how they see this, and as with other projects in the past, they're looking for feedback. This is a relatively large tract of land, and the applicant sees expansion of this particular use in the future, but initially wishes to start with several units and then expand on to the almost 20 acres lot.
So would your main point be that that would be a commercial activity in a residential zone?
That's correct. Okay. So really, there's no motion. This is presenting as a concept. He's looking for feedback.
Right.
From how you perceive this project within that zone. Staff recommendation is going to be to deny this commercial activity in the residential zone.
I know that there's a 20-acre plot on that site for sale right now, but this one will.
This is that 20 acres.
That's it. That's it.
Yes.
Any other feedback on this?
So for this proposal, there'd have to be a zoning change, correct? For this proposal, there'd have to be a zoning
It
change.
would have to be a zoning change. There's no way within a residential district to be.
All right, so there's nobody here on that. So, thank you. So the next item G, the Ellerslie subdivision, Ron Merville, notice of violation for erosion and sediment control.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. We are seeking direction.
If the rest of you want to leave, because that was your only item, you're welcome to. It's up to you. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. We can have quiet again, thank you.
Not as exciting as we thought
You don't have to stay either, I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sharon, on item
No
G.
problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Ellerslie Plan Unit Development came to the Planning Commission initially in 2008. That Plan Unit Development has now expired. The timeline for development is agreed upon, as we discussed, I think, once in the past. Recently, Mr. Merville began to develop the remaining 2 lots. As you drive into the entrance driveway towards the back on the right, the last 2 lots of phase 1, creating a great deal of soil erosion in the process. I have on 4 occasions visited with Mr. Merville regarding the soil erosion. There is some damage to substrate road. The water has invaded adjacent houses. It's plowing trenches between the houses. The curb, the guttering, and the roundabout while sustaining damage, and then it runs down the street because it's a slope going to the other end for the other 5 remaining vacant lots that belong to Steve Riegel. We are in receipt, including your packet, of a letter submitted on behalf of the residents by Commissioner Clark. I won't go into the details of the letter. However, I addressed Mr. Merville yet once again after the last big rain. Mr. Merville submitted a soil erosion plan. I reviewed that plan. I stopped work on the 2 properties in order to address the issues that were present. It's my understanding that after the last rain, which occurred, I believe, last weekend, there was some more water that went across the street. One of the residents directly adjacent to the houses that he's building is backing out of the driveway into a 15-foot wide depression in the road where the gravel is completely gone. day. I'm seeing the water run between the lots, creating trenches. The traffic circle and road surfaces themselves are great. So I would like some direction from this planning commission. My proposal to you is a couple of things. One, Mr. Merle has visited with us on several occasions and has yet produced a plan for phase 2 or 3. The bulk of the runoff that is affecting the neighbors and adjacent properties is coming from that steep slope directly behind where he's building. The second thing that I would like to address is the fact that the only bond that's present on this construction project is a line of credit from the bank. While they serve a purpose, sometimes they're really productive and useful. On construction projects, they're practically useless. What I would like to propose is that Mr. Merkel be directed to provide an as-built performance bond, so that if the flaw is not cured, it's creating an issue for the entire development adjacent to the construction site, the city is able to cash out and have the work done. Third, I believe that HOA documents have been produced for the lots. Those have never been brought to the planning commission for review or approval or to the city commission. A PUD agreement, as you're aware, has several components. One is the zoning overlay. Second is the agreement to develop, which comes with several plans that are reviewed by staff and outside experts if we need them. And third is the homeowners association. So those occurred outside the purview of the planning commission, which is required by our ordinance. I spoke to Mr. Merkel's attorney, Mr. Reisner, a couple of days ago. Mr. Reisner has a clean understanding of the issues and has stated that he will have a conversation with his client so that we can begin to address this. But I want to know if the planning commission is comfortable proceeding one with performance bond as built, so that when the project's finished, it's exactly as proposed, and we have the means to correct the deficiencies if it's not. Secondarily, Mr. Merkel brings forth a plan to either regrade phase 2 through 3 to prevent runoff into the developed areas. And the third thing that I would like for the planning commission to provide me with permission to do is to sit down with the applicant, his attorney, and our city attorney to see if we can come to some resolution of this issue after all of those years.
Mark, do you have anything to add?
Legal is on board with the planner.
Okay.
Does the as-built encompass the road right away and the curbing? It will, all
All of the infrastructure improvements would be included. All of the roads and the infrastructure improvements in Ellerslie are private,
right,
but there's still an impact on the people who live there. And what's happening now doesn't match what we approved when the project originally came to us. So I'm looking for a better mechanism to get accountability to the bill.
Do you need a motion from us?
I do. I can't proceed to do that until we make a motion. I would adopt those 3 things for this project.
I would take a motion to take whatever action is necessary to deal with the problems with that subdivision. Does that meet the requirements of the attorney?
Including requirement as the build performance bond, requiring production of the HOA documents, requiring
A grading plan to address the soil erosion issues on the rear phase 2 and 3.
and conversation about potential amendment of the existing.
That's my motion.
second.
Okay, any questions?
Within the state of Tennessee, water, is it considered a common enemy or not?
Consider what?
A common enemy. Is there a common enemy law in reference to water within the state?
I've never heard it specifically referred to as that.
As in, you have to direct your water to ditches and stormwater runoffs as opposed to running them across other people's.
Right, yeah. It has to be, I mean, you're in a subdivision like this, and we've got drainage ditches and all the mechanisms
Right.
that handle this, That's where the water needs to be going.
So what,
We also have a number of state statutes that require the developer or property owner to control their runoff in their own lot. You can't dispose of it on somebody else's property. So as these properties are being deeded as individual lots,
Correct.
you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, even if that lot is downhill from it.
yeah, if there was an issue with flooding before, it's not your issue to fix it. But if you increase that flow, then that's your bad.
That's correct. You're not allowed to dispose of your development water on somebody else's property.
Okay, so any other questions or comments on this motion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion approved.
I do have a comment. Does that mean we as a city, we don't have any structural standards for bonds for these type of?
We have some elements of bond.
And the reason I bring that up, we're talking about this other development. We need to get that on the agenda soon and make sure we have
The other
a structural bond.
Be developed in a much different fashion.
Because we're going to be right back here with Mr. McPherson.
I don't want to speak to how they got really kind of nervously, but it was a totally different review process.
Okay.
So the steps will be in place as we talk about future development.
Okay.
And you were dealing with 2006 and 2007 numbers.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So now, item 9A, flood study, ESP endangered species data.
Yes, as you know, we've been waiting on the Gulf Club of Tennessee to finish their Clomar study for the Planning Commission to review. We are still waiting on the environment or the endangered species reviews, which has to go out to U.S. Wildlife Fish, has to go out to Cheetah, has to go out to every environmental community involved. I got some documents today, the request has been submitted. They have not as yet told the Golf Club when that study will be completed. The Golf Club has hired her to go out and find a plant that's identified as an endangered species in this general area, that will map those and pull it off for review. Secondarily, while we're on the topic of flood studies, discovered last week on a site visit for a totally different project at Golf Club that a building is now being occupied in the flood area as a comfort station between holes 9 and 10. So I wanted to let the Planning Commission know that a notice of violation has been sent out. I have spoken to Mr. Powell on 2 occasions during last week where he advises they will resolve the issue. All the conversion was done without a permit. In addition to that, there's a luxury restroom coach that's been parked in the flood area as well. So those issues will be resolved hopefully on the time we begin.
That was item A. Item B, expansion of sewer, Lyman Hills Road consideration. Recommendations of the city council to expand city sewer service on Lyman Hills Road, impact, cost, future growth.
As we discussed for an earlier project, sewer was installed at the former chiropractor's office, which is where it now owns. So that sewer has the potential to go on down Lyman Hills Road at a fairly reasonable cost to the city. And it's something that we want to know as we're looking at the TPR and a number of other things in the city for planning purposes, whether or not the planning commission feels it would be worth the city's effort to expand the sewer system beyond the Petro and the commercial grid that exists on down Lyman Hills Road.
Do we have does the city have the capacity?
Yes. I couldn't tell you how many more rooftops or commercial businesses right off the top of my head, but we do have additional capacity.
And so my reason for bringing this up, as you know, residential development is done well, really well. You can break breaks even from a cost perspective to the town. Commercial development produces funds that offset the cost of providing services to the citizens. You are in a unique window right now, given the amount of growth that's occurring around you, to be able to expand services relatively inexpensively that may produce economic development on the other side of the interstate to help relieve the compression from all of the lots on the east Kingston Springs Road side of the interstate. And it will provide you with a unique opportunity to explore different types of zoning rather than just highway commercial for that area.
So on this picture, Sharon, the yellow is current?
That's correct.
And so what, in terms of expansion, what?
I'm going to defer to John for that and let him.
Because I don't see what we're talking about.
Picture for you.
If I can approach the document. There has been some interest in, this is just approximately where the current sewer mains are. Stopping here, there's been some interest and discussion of moving and continuing this line along here up at least until this curve, a little farther up Lubin Hills Road.
Is that the low pressure line?
It would be the main, so it would be a pressure line. But that's a suggestion.
And what would we see that accommodating by doing that?
Potential future commercial development for this area.
And that's all commercial already?
This is zoned commercial, these are zoned residential. This is the only lot that's commercial.
So as you're talking, are you thinking that there's potential for those to become commercial?
Yes, sir.
That's the idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is this just a discussion, or is this?
It is just a discussion. The staff want to make you aware that as we've had a number of people express interest in vacant properties around the city, rather than focusing on an area that's already compromised, it might make more sense to start considering expansion areas where traffic isn't such a compromise.
Any questions or comments for Sharon on this? Or John?
Around that curve is a hole.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a big hole. And that other commercial property, I mean, or potential developer could pay for that, not the city.
Exactly.
I mean,
So that's.
I don't know if that's where you're going. Oh, okay.
And that's the thought. The thought is just the idea of expanding, whether it's a town proposed cost, which we would maybe defer to, but a developer proposed cost would be beneficial, but it's the thought of expanding the sewer system in general is really what we're looking at.
John, along that corridor, if I may, there's a place where a structure used to stand, and now there's a hole being dug there. Is there any relevance to that we're aware of, to a sewer system coming through?
There has been a level of interest on that parcel, yes.
Across the street too.
We frequently get requests from applicants and discussions come up that are not exactly carved in a rock. Is that a polite way to put it? So we don't really know why the question's being asked. The lot that's been recently cleared, I received a phone call from the gentleman who purchased it and cleaned up the lot. He has expressed interest in having some sort of an event venue. Originally, there was some discussion about cabins or some other sort, so I don't know that people have fully fleshed out what their concept is at this point. But it's something that's going to answer the question for this planning commission. Cost prohibition maybe is not suitable for commercial development. Down in a hole is a really bad place to start. For second, so sometimes it answers the question for somebody rather than having a question.
What was that?
Did I understand you said somebody's down there digging now?
They emptied out the pond. They dug out the pond.
The house was here too.
I know the house.
I don't think they dug, they emptied the pond.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they emptied the pond.
Tore down the house too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that.
But the hole, it looks like a hole, it used to be a pond. And
Is he?
took the,
This is Pearson Iron Works, owned that property.
I know we have to do on
McPherson, not McPherson, but that ironworks.
Okay. All right, so, transportation planning report. C.
You know, my chair, just real quick, we received the initial corridor study from Gresham Smith. Sharon and I reviewed it, discussed. There were a few things that we felt were lacking in that study, particularly additional information and emphasis on SR 249, which is Kingston Spring Road, that we were concerned with, that we would like that documented in that particular study, as well as potential alternate routes to help alleviate some of the local traffic on Moving Hills Road, like Hills Road for those of you who live around there. We received, so we submitted several, I think 4 different ideas that we would like to see in that report. Just this afternoon, we received the updated draft and have not had a chance to review that yet and see if our suggestions were initially included. So next month, we will bring that back to the planning commission for review. Jerry, do you have others to add?
I did a preliminary review of the document this afternoon before I came to the meeting after I received it. We will go back to that group.
Okay. Any other items?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So the yellow line is all, the sewer line is already there, high pressure sewer, low pressure sewer, down Petro.
Yes. Petro Road.
Why those blocks have stayed empty for so long?
I can help answer that. I can help answer that. Because we want too much for them, that's why.
Maybe we can plan on
There's some ideas, right, Todd? There's some ideas.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, bring it up to leadership.
We got that story from next week.
Pardon me, this was the motion to adjourn. We have a second from Tom. Is there another question, Brittany?
I thought you.
All in favor?